I'm Alec Kazakowski. I'm the owner of Got It Rex in Melbourne. We're a Subaru specialist store, and I built the car behind us.
Welcome to Road to World Time Attack Challenge 2024, presented by Supercheap Auto. We're here at Got It Rex in Melbourne, Victoria, and we'll be chatting to the owner, Alec Kazakowski, about his workshop and his time attack entry behind me.
Got It Rex has been around for about 16 years. Prior to that, I worked as a mechanic and an apprentice motor mechanic at Subaru in the early 2000s. Prior to that, I worked for my father, who also happened to have a lot of Subaru customers, so those cars seem to follow me around.
How long ago did you get this car, and what was the initial intention for it?
So the car is, I think it's like 10 years old roughly, and it started as just a Japanese import as a part of like a small import and resale of racing rally cars. And it was one of the ones that got left behind that already had some modifications done to it, so it was probably a little bit on the rougher side. So we decided to keep it and turn that into our little project car.
How did your time attack journey begin?
2010 to 2012, when we had a few customers asking us to prep some cars that they're wanting to run in time attack, and some of our more regular competitors become more involved in their cars and basically oversee the builds and the maintenance. It sort of eventuated from there, probably more kicked off somewhere around about 2015, 2016. And so in the background, we were building our own car for a bit of fun and development, and time attack and sprint racing locally is sort of a similar beast. We just wanted to experiment with and obviously make faster and try new things, and so we sort of just pushed the boundaries of the class limits locally, and that sort of happened to fall in line with some of the time attack rules in the classes that we were potentially going to compete in. So we always had that in the background, just never knowing where we were actually going to take the step officially and run it in time attack.
How much of this car did you build in-house with your team?
So in terms of us building the car, we've pretty much done 99% of it, from building the engine, doing the body work, fabrication work, suspension setup, wrapping it, a whole bunch of things. Some of the outsourced stuff would be more in line with specialty stuff like CNC machining, some of the parts that are produced for it, but most of it's in-house. So the car's a little bit of an all-rounder. It's designed and based around time attack racing or circuit racing or sprint racing, but we have entered it into a few different little things. It's done and won the Geelong Motorsport Revival, which is essentially like a drag race around a bit of a bend down near the coast. It's won the local WRX Championship in open class. It's won Oz Time Attack out at Winton, and a couple other small things here and there, but mainly local stuff.
And what was the process like to get it to where it is today?
It was pretty slow and I suppose a huge learning curve. So starting with your typical bolt-on easy stuff, and then trying huge changes and then trying to make those changes work. We tried to develop something that was fun to learn on but fun to drive. Unfortunately, sometimes that means it takes a long time until you can get the recipe right. So it's spent a lot of time just in development and reworked again and again. I suppose the original parts on the car would be generally most of its mounting points. So it still is a traditional Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive. The transmission casing, or a majority of it, is still original Subaru. The rear differential is original Subaru layout. The suspension pickup points are pretty much all Subaru. And some of the tin work on the inside, the floor pans, chassis rails, etc., stuff like that. The engine is still Subaru. It's from an SVX, which is an early Subaru sports car from the early 90s. Only came in like an automatic, and it was like a luxury limited edition coupe. However, the good thing about a lot of Subaru stuff is a lot of the parts are interchangeable. So you can take it and bolt it to like a WRX transmission, which helps you sort of move along a little bit quicker in developing things. So we took that engine and we took it because of its capacity and the fact that we could try to make, I suppose, more power than we could with the 4 cylinders and see if it was beneficial in any way.
So talking about numbers, how many kilowatts, RPMs and boosts are we looking at?
Okay, so the engine itself, it's got a 1400 horsepower turbo on it. It should rev cleanly to within the 9s, so 9,000-ish happily. And power-wise, the engine's built to take sort of upwards of 40 to 50 pounds of boost, and has only ever run it half that. So anywhere between 20 and 30 pounds is where we've played with multiple different turbochargers. So it's produced good numbers, good power, great torque. So somewhere in the vicinity of like what we would consider 600-ish to 650 kilowatts at the wheels, or 1,000 horsepower, if you will. It's proven quite a handful even at that. But we're sort of hoping to unleash a little bit more of its potential once we can get past a few of the hurdles.
And the car looks fantastic as is, but could you tell me a little bit more about the aero?
The aero was, it started off as a little bit of a project to get the car to look a little bit like an early 90s DTM car. Always fascinated by them. I like the square edges and the aggressiveness of the car, where you can still see the original car, but you can tell it's purposeful. So I wanted it modeled around that, and I had a few ideas, and so we made what's known as a plug out of the car. At that time, I had a good family friend of mine, Thomas Yankos, who was also studying aerodynamics in university, and he jumped on board to give me a hand to sort of help make the car more aerodynamic than as if I was to just model it off a DTM car. So we sort of collaborated and come up with what you see today.
And what were some challenges with the EG33?
Some of the parts aren't actually internally similar to an EJ Subaru, so the 4-cylinder version. Quite close, but not exactly the same. And then especially if you want to optimize it, you do need to, pretty much like most, go down the custom route. So it gets quite expensive as you're developing and learning the pitfalls of the platform. You end up redeveloping the same parts over and over again to better them. Probably one of the biggest issues is availability here in Australia for the particular motor, and having that accessibility to be able to have multiples to try different things on, because inevitably failure will happen, and then there's, I suppose, dead time whilst you're waiting for another one to arrive to start again.
So how does it feel driving your own creation?
When it's running, it feels great. Painful when it's not. But it is a really rewarding experience, being able to enjoy what you've built after many years of labour and blood, sweat and tears.
So what advice would you give to someone who is planning to build using the GC8 platform?
Advice, if you were going to use the GC8 platform, I think would be probably to set your goals realistic and maybe plan a budget, because it can become out of hand and the car can also become a little bit mismatched before commencing the build. I find a lot of people like to buy parts and store them prior to a build, but sometimes that can actually be a mistake, because where you're going to race it and in what class, and so it doesn't match the rules or the guidelines of the racing, or the ambitions change. In the past, that's not something that we've been overly concerned with our car, because we are working on it for developmental purposes and for a little bit of a learning curve. But if you were trying to do it the first time around the right way, most definitely set some targets and goals. Maybe really plan it out first and make sure that it's in line with what you expect out of the car. Definitely it is achievable for someone to build a car like the one behind us on their own at home. Yes, it does take a lot of knowledge, but you can pretty much learn anything, and there's some really good companies out there that are willing to help you along your way with the products and the knowledge to get you on the right path.
So back in 2022, this car competed in the World Time Attack Challenge in the Pro class, and you got the time of 1:28.68. could you tell me what class you've entered this car in this year and what lap time you're planning to achieve?
Yeah, so the cars, this year the car's entered in Pro-Am class with me as a driver. The time that it's set in 22 was done in Pro class by Nathan Antunes, and he drove the car extremely well, but the car did have a few issues during that lap time. So it was actually quite a bit faster than what it achieved, theoretically. So we've corrected some of those issues, and then the car's also advanced in power as well as grip. So we'd probably be expecting a time somewhere down in the mid-20s, optimally toward the lower 20s, all going well and the stars aligning.
What is coming up in the future?
So at the moment, we are still doing a couple little tests to it to see whether it's worth taking the Oz Time Attack. It may just be a shakedown for the car, which is still a huge step forward because it's done very little since last World Time Attack, where we suffered a mass engine failure and cracked the motor open. So we have some teething issues we need to deal with. If that does go ahead and well, then we move to Oz Time Attack and then some preliminary testing for World Time Attack. And then obviously the main event being World Time Attack at the end of August. I look forward to competing against Ferris in his Corvette, because last year, I suppose, on par, and I thought we had a really good chance. The times that were achieved, I think, were definitely achievable by us last year had the car been successful in running. So that's definitely one I'm looking forward to. I'm just looking forward to having it running, to be honest. You're welcome to stop by the garage and come say hello. Come check out the cars, come ask as many questions as you want. There's a whole bunch of great guys that work with us. They love chatting, especially when it's about our cars, or if you need any advice about building cars. So you're welcome to drop by, and I really look forward to coming and competing at the event. It's a really enjoyable experience. We've got a great team behind us, and it's immensely rewarding.
It's super at Supercheap Auto.